Hello, my name is Jonathan Moore, and I am a board member with United Way of Northern Nevada and the Sierras, and I'm so excited to be here with you today to read you a story. Today we have The Little Library. The Little Library by Margaret McNamara and G. Brian Karras. The Little Library. I wonder what's it about. Here we have a picture of a boy and a girl. I wonder where they're going. The Little Library. One breezy spring afternoon, Mr. Tiffin told his class, "Our new library is finally open. Time to meet our new librarian." "I'm excited," said Jeremy. "Me too," said Charlie and Alex together. "Me three," said Molly. "I could stay here and sharpen pencils," said Jake. Jake was a slow and careful reader. Sometimes he read the same page more than once, so he could figure everything out. When it came to the library day, Jake felt left behind. Wonder what we see in the pictures. I think we see Jake here sharpening pencils. And then I think we see our other friends excited to go to the library. Let's see what happens next. The new library smelled like fresh paint and wood. "Welcome, everybody," said a friendly-looking person. "I'm Beck Good. Please call me Librarian Beck. I'm here to help you find books." "When you open a book, you open your mind," Eleanor announced. "When you open a book," said Jake. "Why don't you explore the library for a while," said Librarian Beck. "That will help me get to know you." So here we see Librarian Beck and all of the other children. Looks like a pretty cool library. Kimmy headed to the science section. Alex and Charlie hunted for a story they could read together. Tara found the art books and looked for paintings by women. Jake wandered over to a corner shelf. He studied the bookcase to see how the pieces fit together. He ran his finger along the grooves of the wood. So here we see everyone looking for their favorite library book. And we see Jake, who's actually looking at the bookshelf. I wonder why. I wonder why Jake would be looking at the bookshelf when everyone else is looking at books. Let's see if we'll find out. After a while, Librarian Beck came to talk to him. "See, what do you think of this?" they said. Librarian Beck put a heavy book into Jake's hands, and it was old and worn. "Woodworking for Young Hands," read Jake. He opened the book. The first pages were filled with drawings of tools. Jake already knew the names of some of them. "Oh, that's an owl," he said. "My Gramps has a workshop." So here we see Jake with Librarian Beck, and we see a book about tools and wood. I wonder, does that explain why he was looking at the bookshelf instead of books? Also, it says his grandfather has a workshop. Wonder what does that mean? Jake handed the book back to them. "This has a lot of pictures," he said, "so it doesn't count as reading." "Says who?" said Librarian Beck. "A lot of people," said Jake. "Not me," said Librarian Beck. Jake checked out the book. He let it sit for a while when he got home. He had other things to do. So here we see Jake. We see the book that he checked out from the library. I wonder what else did he have to do? What's that in his hand? Maybe that's his other hobby. After a few days, he read the instructions for the first project and the second. They didn't make a lot of sense to him. The next library day, Jake's book was due back. Slowly, he handed it over. The instructions are pretty hard. But it looks like you took some good notes, said Librarian Beck. Want to keep it another week? Sure, Jake said. So here we see Jake and the librarian. Jake's returning the book. He took a lot of notes, which lets me believe that he might be a little bit interested in the book. And he got to keep it another week, which is really exciting. Let's see what happens next. Jake spent the next week reading more of the book, still slowly. The more he read, the more curious he became about things made of wood. He looked at the way the three legs of the stool supported the seat. He noticed that some tables had sharp corners and some were round. He wondered how to bend wood to make the back of a chair. The next 3 library days, Jake renewed woodworking for young hands. Librarian Beck found other books they thought Jake would like, and Jake checked those out too. All the things Jake's curious about, the wood on chairs, the wood on other things. I wonder if any of you see any wood in the rooms that you're in. As you can see, I have a wooden bookshelf, a couple actually behind me. On a warm, sunny morning, Librarian Beck had an announcement to make. All library books need to be returned before the end of school, they said. That way, the library will be organized and ready when you come back next year. Wait, Jake said, the library is closed all summer? Of course it is, said Robert. Jake looked down at woodworking for young hands. He hadn't realized he'd have a chance to give it back so soon. I wonder, how do we think Jake felt when he learned the library was going to be closed all summer? How would you feel if the library were closed all summer? I might feel disappointed. I might feel sad. Let's see what happens next. That night, Jake had an idea. He turned to a page he had marked in the book. Then he looked around his house. He found a yardstick, a screwdriver, and some 3-inch screws. Then he called Gramps. Interesting. I wonder what Jake is thinking, what he's going to make. And if we remember, earlier in the story, we found out that Gramps owned a woodworking shop. Let's see what happens next. Over the next 2 weekends, Jake spent a lot of time in Gramps' workshop. Jake measured and marked plywood. Gramps cut along the lines Jake made. Gramps drilled holes. Jake screwed in screws. Jake attached hinges, affixed plexiglass, and painted. Gramps and Jake didn't talk a lot while they worked. They didn't need to. At last, they were done. Wow. What do we think that is? Looks like Gramps and Jake spent a lot of time making something. What do you think it is? What could it be? On the last library day of the year, Jake brought something very big and very heavy into Mr. Tiffin's classroom. It was covered with a large cloth. It's for Librarian Beck, he said. Everyone in the class tried to guess what Jake had made. Looks like a giant bird cage, said Charlie. It's better than a bird cage, said Jake. A dollhouse? Asked Alex. Nope, said Jake. So there we see the surprise covered with a cloth. What do you think it is? We know it's not a dollhouse. We know it's not a bird cage. What could it be? Let's see. Tara and Jeremy helped carry Jake's surprise into the library. Jake pulled off the cloth. It's a little library, said Jake. You built that? Asked Jeremy. With help from Woodworking for Young Hands, Jake said, and my Gramps. What's a little library? Asked Kimmy. A little library is a place to share books, said Mr. Tiffin. People take a book out and bring it back, or they replace it with another book, said Librarian Beck, all for free. So while our big library is closed, this little library can stay open, said Jake. Wow. So we see the little library. Wow. How nice is that? On the very last day of school, after the class had scrubbed the desk and taken out the trash and written in the memory book, Mr. Tiffin led them outside. There was Librarian Beck with the school custodian. They were standing next to the little library. I filled it with books, said Librarian Beck. Want to take one out, Jake? They asked. That's okay, said Jake. I'm going to wait till I can check out Woodworking for Young Hands again next year. What do you see? I think we see all of Jake's classmates coming to look at the little library that Librarian Beck filled with books. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? All that summer, Jake's little library stayed busy. People put all kinds of books in and took all kinds of books out. How nice is that? One hot day in July, a package arrived for Jake. He tore open the brown paper. Inside was Woodworking for Young Hands. On the first page, he saw this. Then he saw a note. Withdrawn. Who do we think could have sent Jake this book? Woodworking for Young Hands. Let's see if we find out. Dear Jake, you love this book more than anyone had loved it in a long time. Withdrawn means this book does not belong to the library anymore. It belongs to you. See you next year and keep reading. Librarian Beck. How thoughtful is that? Little Free Libraries by Jake. It turns out that there are thousands of libraries like the one I made all over the country and all over the world. They're called Little Free Libraries, and if you want to find out more about them, you can go to littlefreelibrary.org. You'll see a ton of information about starting a little free library, from choosing a good spot to asking a grown-up to help you keep the library going. You can order a kit from the Little Free Library website, or you can download plans to work from. Your little free library can even appear on an interactive map of the world. And that, my friends, is the little library. It has been so great spending this time with you and reading this story to you. I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of the day. Bye.